Hey everybody, this is your boy John, aka Captain Mustache here. On today's episode of Geeks from the Multiverse, we're going to be talking about the Fantastic Four, baby. And so yes, we're going to do a deep dive of all the history, even some of the newer stuff that we just recently watched. But yes, it will be spoiler free, so stay tuned.
We're geeks from the multiverse. We've come to unite all geeks. Now it's time to get geeky and dive right in, 'cause we're geeks from the multiverse.
Hey everybody, again, yes, this is your boy John, aka Captain Mustache, and as always with me is Mr. Grumpy Beard, aka Matt Gunther.
What's going on?
So yes, I know that, just talking about these groups of superheroes, right? So like, you got X-Men, you got the Avengers, you got Fantastic Four. I mean, there's a whole slew of groups, but like these guys, I feel like they're a little underrated in some ways. You know what I mean? Like I feel like they're
Well, they haven't ever really been portrayed the right
well, that's true. I mean, it is
right
very
way
true
either.
because like, when you look back at the the 60s and stuff, you have like animated features and like, what I mean by that is more like the TV shows and like maybe like animated movies that they did back in the day. But like, they had a live action TV show, yes, in the 90s. And everyone's like, oh, they did? And you're like, yeah, but you don't want to know what that was because the thing did not look like anything that he should have been.
And there's actually an unreleased movie that was supposed to be in '94.
Yes, you're right. And they never did. And so like that was the thing though. And so yeah, the thing.
Oh,
the thing
yeah.
is,
Gosh.
I gotcha. Yes, we're gonna make that a catchphrase now. Anyways, no, I'm joking. No, it's I can't even speak today. I'm sorry, but like you look at this group. You're right. You look at the 2005 version of the movie, right? You start to look at Jessica Alba, Chris Evans. I'm trying to remember Ben Chiklis, and I'm trying to remember the guy. Is it Ion or Ion, whatever? The guy who actually plays Mr. Fantastic in that.
Yes, I don't remember.
I can't remember his first name.
Yeah.
He's got a weird first name, but like those guys definitely did a good job in some ways. Like I think, and it was nice to see that, like those guys in particular, especially, unfortunately, the guy who played Doctor Doom, who actually did recently pass, R.I.P.
Julian McMahon.
There you go, Julian McMahon. Like he played an excellent Doctor Doom. I think he played a really.
I mean,
well.
for what? I mean, this is where we kind of say when you follow the blueprint or you don't follow the blueprint. For what you're given, he did a good job with.
Oh no, absolutely. Like I said, I mean, Fox ready? Yes, because they are the ones that actually did this. They did a good job for what they had. I mean, the only issue was I will admit, even the Silver Surfer in those portrayals was what I would think that's perfect. Like he was a great Silver Surfer.
I think he was a great Silver Surfer. I
but-
think Doctor Doom was more corporate.
Yes, he was very corporate in that movie.
Yes.
He had nothing to do really with Latveria.
But I mean, we're going to get into the movies more so. I
Yes,
think
I know.
a little bit later.
I know.
You're jumping the gun a little bit.
I'm not trying to.
bit.
No, hold on. I was just trying to. I had a point, man. All right.
Okay, we'll get to the point because we are going to get in the movies
Yes,
a little
I know.
bit more
Yes.
in depth.
So it was just like you look at that time frame, and then you look at the ones we just watched. Yes. Matt and I did go see it just recently. We watched it on Friday, so we're
No spoilers, by the
we
way.
are not spoiling it, no. But we will say certain things that we did see that were, good, and that of course that were, we're like, that's not as good as it should have been. But anyways, yes, there's a big difference between that time frame and this time frame because, Fantastic Four, like we've said, they've had some good portrayals, but they've also had some really shitty ones, and they didn't really do a good job. But yes, my point is,
Not the newest movie that just came out, but the
2015-ish.
the 2015 movie that was terrible.
Yes, and I know that like today, like I said before, right? We're jumping into the history of the characters. We're talking about all these things, but we just
Really comic book based.
well, yes, comic book based, and of course we'll mention the movies and stuff like that because that's kind of like what we're gathering all our really information on as well.
Yeah.
Sorry, but yes, like I said, man. I mean, these groups of people, they really have been a little bit, like I said, underrated. And, and for a group though, I mean, Reed Richards, right. As a character, Mr. Fantastic, like he is one of the smartest people on the planet or probably, well, not say the universe, but like I think he's even smarter than Tony. Like he's really up there in that intellect genius level because again, when you look at him in other groups like the Illuminati and stuff, he's one you want to have on your team. Like
Right.
he's your genius super
Yeah.
level, and I know with him and Tony and stuff like those two, like they could geek out for days talking about all kinds of
I
different
mean,
shit.
between him, Tony, and Hank Pym.
Oh yeah.
I mean, the three of them. I mean, you put them together. But I mean, the thing with Fantastic Four too is, I mean, in Marvel comics, they were the first family group. I mean,
Yeah.
you talk about the Avengers, they're a team. X-Men, they're a team. When Fantastic Four really came around, I mean, they debuted in '61,
Right.
but they were the first group that were like eating together. They slept in the they didn't sleep
no,
together,
they didn't
but
sleep. Well, no, but I
but
mean,
they slept, within the same, household area,
right.
in the Baxter building. They slept in the same building on the same floor together.
Right.
Obviously not together, but
No.
they
The
they
only-
had separate rooms, obviously, but they were a family. They treated each other like family. They argued like a family. They were essentially like the first Marvel,
Right, family superheroes, yeah.
the Avengers were not like that. They were a group. They were a team. They did not stay together.
Well, so they granted when you to look at it, I mean, granted if you're looking at comics or movies or whatever, yeah, they technically, with Tony, like he bought the building, he made it the Avengers building in a sense or whatever, right? So like they had their own quarters, they had their own stuff. They did kind of fight like a family, but it wasn't like this where, Johnny and Sue were both brother and sister where, Reed and Ben were best friends and, they just kind of mingled in. And of course, Reed Richards and Sue, wink, wink, they were sleeping in the same bed. I wasn't.
Well,
gonna say
yes,
that,
but I mean, it was with the Avengers and X-Men. Yes, with X-Men, obviously with the X-Mansion, yes, they all had their own individual dorms and stuff. But like,
True.
I think with them, like they weren't having, Sunday meals together, or they weren't
Not okay, maybe not always, no.
they weren't spending time together. They weren't doing things together, and that's where it was different with Fantastic Four. Is they were actually doing things together, and it wasn't just going on missions.
Right. I mean, and yes, like I said, and this is where I would say, like, this is your first time having that superhero family of, just a group of people spending all this time together, but also just realizing that, these individuals, I mean, again, they're extraordinary in their own ways. I mean, when you look at Ben Grimm, I mean, for example, the thing is, I'm joking. I know I'm not trying to continue this, Matt, but, when you look at his power versus like the Hulk, I mean, granted, yes, I know the Hulk technically would probably be a little bit stronger, but Ben Grimm literally has gone toe to toe with the Hulk and has, I mean, sometimes they were evenly matched at some points, but like, a guy like that, I mean, you want somebody that can be as powerful as he is on a team. And then like looking at Johnny, he's one of those guys that, yeah, he was the comic relief slash, the idiot brother or really the uncle. Oh, wait. Sorry. I'm just not trying to spoil a whole lot here, but, if you watch or at least read the comics, I mean, yes, he's just in some ways like he's like semi-brilliant, but like you're like, Johnny, what the fuck, man? Like, what are you doing, buddy?
Yeah, he's just kind of. I mean, I think in the newer movie, he's not as much of a hothead as he was in the other movies. But
correct.
yeah, I mean, he's not as smart, and he's not.
But I mean, his power alone is powerful enough.
Yes. Yeah. And obviously, I think Sue is probably the most powerful out of all of them.
Oh, absolutely. In any way, well, especially even though people think, okay, invisibility, yes, that is her. I would say her majority of her power, but like the fact that she can literally, it's like an aura, like an aura blast, and like literally goes toe to toe with certain like supervillains. I'm not spoiling it. Okay, I'm just saying like certain villains that they go against. She can literally go against them, and then like when you look at Reed and them, they can't do that. Like she just has that ability, and so like that's why I'd say you're right. Like she's very underrated in that sense. But anyways, before we jump even further, I want to mention this real quick. So yes, Matt and I, we've been discussing a little bit more. So we've been talking about some merch. We've been talking about some stuff, so we're thinking about doing some stuff, hopefully with the Etsy store, trying to push some stuff out, hopefully you guys, if you want to take a look at that, go on Etsy, you can probably even find Matt Gunther on there, or you can even just look up the GFTM store, So there's gonna be some shirts ideas, stuff like that. We've had other ideas that are on our Printify store, which we're not really using as much. It's just more for us to, push the product to Etsy. But the point is, we're trying to get you guys, if you wanted to take a look, we're not forcing you to buy anything. We just want you just take a look, just take a look at what we got. I know it's been a while since Matt, had some other ideas with it. And again, I get it. We don't want to keep pushing stuff if no one's going to right now be buying. And I get that. Trust me. I do understand that. But
well, we did put the Follow the Damn Blueprint shirt up there.
We
So
did.
we have that shirt. And then we have a new logo.
Yes, a new logo shirts. Yeah. So take a look at that. Again, follow us. Ready? Follow, interact, subscribe, tell your friends. That's right.
Boom.
And that's right, the fist bump. But the point is, right, so just spread the word, man. And I'm only saying this now because you know what? I know once we get into this conversation, I'm just not going to be able to talk again about it. So I figured I'd mention all this stuff now.
Yeah,
But
I
again,
mean, any little thing helps. I mean, we have pins and we have stickers. I mean, the pins are like literally $7, and they're really cool. I mean, they're $7. The stickers are $4, $5, and $6.
right. And then the funny thing about the pin though is like Matt literally took the time. So like every time he's ever made a shirt, he's always made a pin.
Yeah.
Right. So like you can always like, even if I'm just gonna say it, right? Even if you don't get the shirt, some of the pins I'm like, you could just put it on literally anything. I mean, well, just don't poke yourself with it. But like, you can put it on your bags, you can put it on anything.
I mean, if
I
you're
can
that
stick
much
to
of
it,
a freak, you just pin it right to your skin.
I mean,
if you're that much of a freak,
if you really want to.
I mean, hey, I'm not judging anybody, but I mean, if you're gonna do that, go ahead. I mean, they're cool like that.
It's true. And then so the real quick, I know we're gonna be trying to jump into the intro. I will say that Matt unfortunately did not bring his cool little merch with him that we got from watching we both did watch the new Fantastic Four, which we have our own opinions about. I think for the most part, besides a couple of things, I think the movie was actually good. And I'm saying this because I think that for what Marvel has done in the last, we're going to say even 5 years, and I know I'm kind of pushing it right now. I would say, I mean, is it the same quality as like, Shang-Chi or, No Way Home or, or Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness, something like that? Probably not as big as that, but I will say that for at least the last, let me phrase this. How about let's say the last couple years of movies? This one's definitely better for sure because I think this one has the potential to be something, and I know there's certain things that I still don't quite understand why they did, but I'm hoping that yes, in later movies that they're planning on doing that it will make sense, right? It's just right now we're just a little confused on a couple things, and again, we're not going to spoil it. We're just letting you know that our own opinions, but. I mean, unless you have something else to say,
No, I mean, I'll share my opinion a little bit later when we get towards the movie side of it.
Well,
but,
I'm not. Yeah. I didn't say all of my opinion. I just said
no.
I said an overall general view.
No, I mean, I'll share like little bits and pieces because I mean, we're gonna get to a point where we do talk about, Norrin Rad and Shalla-Bal.
Yes, of course,
they're in the notes here. So, I mean, I'll share a little bit about how I feel about that. Spoiler free, of course, but.
Yes.
As much as possible.
So,
but yes, when we get more towards the movies, I will share how I feel. But I do agree. I mean, I do think they did a much better job. Is it on the level of like Iron Man or
that's what
Captain
I mean.
America? No, I don't think it's on that level. But I do think when you compare it to like Ironheart or Agatha, I mean, I know those are the TV shows, but when you compare it to what they've done since Endgame. Yeah,
this one.
I mean,
this one's better than some of the other shit.
Certainly better, but. Getting back to Fantastic Four as far as the comic books, I mean, you look at Fantastic Four and the comic, I mean, they've launched the Marvel universe like that we know of today. What Stan Lee and Jack Kirby did.
I would say more really Jack Kirby. Not saying that Stan Lee didn't, of course, have a part, but Jack Kirby had a really big part in this as well.
Yeah, but I mean, it's kind of both. I would have to give more props to Jack Kirby, but I mean, it's both. I think it's both.
Oh no, correct. I'm just saying that I think with Jack Kirby, I mean, he made yes, Stan Lee definitely helped create a lot of that, but I think Jack Kirby really, unfortunately, didn't give enough credit for what he did, especially back in that time frame.
Yeah, But I mean, Marvel's answer to really like when DC did their Justice League, Fantastic Four really did mark that new era where they were looking at heroes with flaws, with family dynamics, and that was what at the time DC really just didn't have. When you're looking at Justice League, it was really just heroes.
Well,
Superman. I mean, Batman obviously had flaws, but I mean, you're looking at family dynamics. You're looking at real life problems.
I was also going to say this. When you look at Justice League, I was actually going to say if you're looking at DC versus Marvel, DC, especially back then too, it was dark. It was a darker version of superheroes where this is kind of your family friendly, especially Fantastic Four was your family friendly kind of comics that anyone could read and it doesn't feel like it's a dark tone to it. And
Right.
so like that's where these guys especially had made such an impact, especially with Marvel in that sense where they were, kind of developing like, hey, we might have some dark characters, let's say like the Punisher and, a few others, but these guys really kind of stepped up the game where, like you were saying, like that family dynamic, okay, Johnny, you're so stupid, and like kind of like that, the brush
Well,
it off back
and
in the day thing. But, you know,
Fantastic Four were different too because their adventures were basically science fiction where they were going
Right.
into space. They were going into the negative zone. They were facing, cosmic entities like Galactus and Nihilus. They were going after, these huge villains, and DC really were most of their comics were basically street level crime fighting. They were fighting,
well, yeah, I mean,
you
the
know,
only other person maybe you could say was Superman, but even Superman, I would say even back in the day, wasn't at that level of what these guys were doing
no,
necessarily.
I mean, he wasn't going. I mean, maybe like, certain things like when he was trying to find Krypton again. Like, I mean, there were
or
certain
going after
things,
Dark Side, right,
right?
later on, but
But most of it was, going after with Batman going after the Penguin, going after the Joker, going after Two-Face, a
Right.
lot of these like, Superman and Lex Luthor and, those street level crime fighting where Fantastic Four, they spent a lot. I mean, they were the first to face Galactus.
well, they should be because that's like their main villain.
Yeah.
And it's weird because, and I'm only going to bring this up real quick, and I am going to talk about the movies versus, even like what you see in the comic book. So, like comic book standard is when you're looking at Galactus, right? It's literally the Devourer of Worlds is his like nickname. Okay, so like literally, when you look at, I know in 2005, right, when you or in that time frame, Galactus was a giant black hole in that movie. Was not even an actual thing. There was no, I believe it was just a giant black hole. Wasn't really anything. So like all you see is this like hole just going, like eating up a planet, and you're like, what the hell? Like Galactus is not even close to that because in the comics,
It was
well,
kind of like a cloud.
yeah, it was like a cloud. Okay, so
Yeah.
it was weird, right? So like in the comics, like he's this giant, like literally, I don't even know how tall he is, but he's got to be. Oh, I don't. You know what? I'll let you look that up. But I mean, he's so freaking huge that yes, like when he's standing, let's say on Earth, like he's massive. Like he's basically his foot is almost like I wouldn't say the entire city, but definitely big enough where he's crushing buildings. He's doing all this, but like, he's got a purple basically suit. He's got a weird helmet on his head. We can, if you want to look him up by all means, but like, I will say that in the previous versions of Fantastic Four, no one has actually portrayed Galactus correctly. In this new movie that we just saw, this is the first time we can actually say that Galactus is actually comic book accurate. Because honestly, that is what he should have been like a long time ago.
Right.
And yes, and it's not spoiling because yes, we all know that eventually Fantastic Four was going to see Galactus, but
Well, I mean, he's in the trailer, so it's not like you're
that too.
saying like, oh my god, he's in the movie. Like,
you didn't know that? No, like
if
he
you,
is in
if
the
you
movie.
live under a rock and you haven't seen ever a trailer, then
I don't know what to tell you.
well, sorry, we spoiled.
Yeah, well, sorry, yes, we did. But the point is when you look at him in the movie, he is very comic book accurate on what we would think he would be in live action now. So yes, that's why I'm saying that now. And so, I guess moving forward,
Yeah, I mean, we did talk a little bit about the character breakdowns, but we did talk about them being, unlike the Avengers, the X-Men, like they're a family unit. Like I said, they live together, they fight together, they argue together, but their stories really can combine that pulp science, that sci-fi exploration with like really heartfelt character drama, and that's what sets them apart from Avengers or X-Men because they didn't have really that same type of story. You know what I mean? Like they didn't have that same kind of family character development
Right.
that the Fantastic Four had.
Before I know we kind of touched this, but yes, Julian McMahon. Right. I know we only briefly touched this yet. So the reason like I'm saying this is because, yes, I know another villain of like we've talked about is Doctor Doom, right? And so yes, we all know that yes, it's not spoiler here either. That yes, Tony or really RDJ or Robert Downey Jr. is again is supposedly playing Doctor Doom. Now a little fun fact about this, even though yes, I know he passed away this year, R.I.P. for him, like I mentioned before, but like it was interesting in an interview that Julian actually told I don't know who it was at the time, but he actually gave blessing to RDJ to play that character, which I found interesting. And he said that I think he will do a good job in playing him. And he actually said that he was ready to see him actually play the role. Unfortunately, I know he can't, right? And so I know he passed on, but I'm just, and I know we'll talk more about Doctor Doom in a little bit, but I do, like I said, hope that they are making the right move and they're not going to screw it up. And this is why I'm saying this, because we all know that Marvel has these intentions and has these, these things in the background that we're like, okay, and we're hoping that it's going to be good. Because again, when you look at Endgame and we've seen all this, that was a masterpiece. The problem is now that you move forward, are you going to get that same level? Because again, right now, as we all know, if you look at the trailers and the well, not trailers, but timelines, yes, it's supposed to be, Avengers Doomsday. Okay. Well, this is the point where I'm hoping that this will hopefully culminate what I was about to say DCU, sorry, what MCU was about to, hopefully do, because if they're not at that same level, man, like we said, they're not going to be the contenders anymore. But
I don't know.
I don't know. But anyways, yes, jumping down back to the characters real quick. When you look at Mr. Fantastic or Reed Richards, right? So yes, we all know that yes, his powers are elasticity and genius level intellect, right? We've already talked about that. He is obsessed. He likes, like, if he's stuck on one problem, man, he's stuck on that one problem until it's damn fixed. And then,
well, I mean, even still, I mean, he's one that if he's, if there's like a situation where he's like overly stressed, like he will just go into the lab and he will just work and work and work and work and work. And even if it's like just inventing shit, like, like he will just go in there and be like, yeah, I built this and I built that and I built that. And they'll be like,
why?
Well, why did we need this? He's like, well, because it does this.
Well,
and they're like, well, we don't need that right now.
Well,
like you should be sleeping or getting some rest. And he's like, no, I need to work.
What's funny about him is like, he's one of those ones that he wants to solve a problem before it ever happens. He's like the preventative maintenance type of person, right? So like, he's that one that if it hasn't been invented yet, he will find a way. It's like if you took him, like I said, and you took Tony and you took Hank Pym and you put them all in a room together. Those three together, if you put them in there and they were working on one problem, they wouldn't sleep for days until that one thing was fixed, because all their minds together, they're very similar. That's the weird part. When you look at that.
See, the problem with Tony though is like, I think with Reed Richards, I think he is more on the defensive side of like, if there's a problem, I need to figure it out
right now
and solve it. Where Tony is like, no, there is a problem and we need to, like, I need to figure it out, but I need to get something to defend and have offense. And I think that's where Tony is like, when you see him in some of them in Avengers, like, I need to have a suit all over the world to protect us.
Right. And no. I agree with you, but then, no, it's funny when you look at both Reed and Tony, you're looking at how Tony is very sociable, right? As a person, like he was like, yeah, what are you? He's like, I'm a, a rich billionaire playboy philanthropist. I can't even say that word right. But the point is, like, he's got that social skills that Reed doesn't have. You know what I mean? Reed is one of those ones that he's kind of awkward in some ways, and he's just not there in some points because, like, when he's talking to Ben or Johnny or Sue, whatever, it's not a big deal. But like him, it's like, he wants to understand. like where you're coming from as well, like depending on who you are. But like, it's just his nature. Like, and that's the thing where, it defines him as, like I said, one of the most brilliant minds in, Marvel. And so, when I know the biggest thing for him, especially, is like his guilt, for Ben transforming into the thing. That I know that's a main motivator of why he sometimes feels the way he does, because he's like, I want to keep things from being from what they are, and of course Ben's like, listen, it doesn't matter. It is what it is. It's not a big deal. Like, I'm not blaming you. He's like, well, that's not the point. He's like, I want to make sure that it doesn't happen again, or I should have known. And that's kind of the same way with Tony. If you look at certain aspects, like he feels guilty for certain things.
And I think that was one of the issues with like the 2005 and 2007 movies, where like that was like the obsessed, like, no, you're telling me that you're fine. And obviously in those movies, he was obviously struggling being the Thing, but like, you also see, Reed Richards being like, no, I'm going to figure out our problems, and I'm going to make, I'm trying to fix our problems so that we don't have these powers anymore.
So,
like,
I know that we've been talking about, Reed real quick, but I'm actually going to talk about the Thing real quick. I want to jump ahead just to him, because I actually saw something real quick before we recorded. I saw this video, and it was kind of interesting, where it was like a comic book, like from, I think it was more modern day now. So it was Reed Richards and his son Franklin, I believe. They went to the future because they noticed that Ben's DNA, it doesn't age in the form of the Thing. But when he, because I guess what happened was they found a cure for him, for the Thing, to become a human again. And so but I guess it's like a week-long time frame. So what happens is, in this week he ages, but he has to get a certain medicine every year, but it's only for this 1 week. And so what, Franklin and Reed did is they went into the future, and they wanted to know the legacy of what Ben Grimm did. And so we're talking thousands of years, okay? And it's like, I think it was like up until 6,000 something. It was like 6,012 that he eventually dies. But it's weird. Like, they stop at certain time frames, and they notice that Ben hasn't really aged. Like, he might have a longer beard, or, kind of an older man look or whatever, but not to the point of like death. And so it was interesting to see, like, he's at that point, even in his rock form, he's like almost immortal in a sense. Like, but he's long, like literally looking at the path that he's taking. And especially like at that point, like he actually, from each time frame that they stop, they actually form a new Fantastic Four. So it's like that they continue on the legacy of Fantastic Four, and he's a part of it. And so I think once they get to the end of where he's at of his life, he's basically standing there. He's got this long, kind of like Gandalf beard, and has this like rock stick looking thing. And he's talking to, I guess, statues of the original, like Johnny, Sue, and Reed. And he's sitting there talking with them, reminiscing about the good old days, kind of a deal. And then I think they like fast forward to when he dies, but like, it's sad, because like you're looking at a guy who, he's human, right? He's in a rock form, he's doing all these things. He wants to be normal, but now he's not his friends have died. Like, anyone he's ever met has died. And so like so many thousands of years later, don't get me wrong, that's the knowledge that nobody can have.
Right.
But to think that he, in almost like certain ways, is almost immortal is crazy to me, especially in his form. And so, when you're looking at this, right? So his powers, right? He's a rocky, form. He's got all over his body. He's got superhuman strength and durability. I mean, there's not much that can kill him. Like, I don't even know if at any point, I don't think he's ever died. I think literally in that end of what I said, it was like literally the old age, like literally natural causes. So the fact of that, it's not like there's kryptonite. There's not like there's something in there to kill him, right? So then like, traits. Yeah, so his figure, right? So he hides the pain with humor and gruff exterior, but it has a soft heart. I mean, it's like he really is the heart of the team. When you look at the team dynamic, Reed is always trying to fix the problems. Johnny's kind of the idiot / tries to be funny, but like he doesn't be taken
Yeah,
seriously.
I mean, he's hot-headed. Ladies. He kind of always been the ladies' man, especially in the comic books. Big prankster of the team,
right,
of the group.
But then you look at Sue, who's kind of the mother figure for everybody.
Yeah.
Kind of being that down to earth person. But like Ben being this like tough guy, but he needs to be only because he's hiding the fact that the three of them can live their lives normally. But he can't. Like he
Right.
can't have real relationships, or
even in the comic books, like he's trying to wear like normal clothes, and he's trying to blend in. He wears like that big, that big like overcoat.
yeah,
and
like from the
stuff,
40s and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then that like fedora type thing, and you try it, and like I know, I'm not. All I'm gonna say is this: in the newer movie is that yes, he does wear like. It's almost like a turtleneck and like like the tie and like an actual like suit and tie kind of thing, but like in that 60 time frame, it looked nice on him, but it was weird because then when you saw his feet, or at least his shoes, they were like it's like my feet are about 15. This dude's feet is about like a 30 or 40,
Yeah,
or
they were
bigger or
just
whatever the
weird,
hell
yeah.
it was. But it was just interesting to see that a character.
If you could almost imagine, like obviously he's like much bigger than that, but like
oh yeah, no,
like the old like maybe like 50s or 40s like really fat gangsters.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
that every time they showed him with clothes, like that's what I kept thinking.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
like those really short, big guys, like and their clothes are just kind of like they're bigger.
They're kind of baggier and
That's what I kept thinking of. But yeah, I mean, and then the catchphrase for obviously for him was the most popular.
it's clobbering time, and he's no, I will say this. I'm not really trying to spoil the movie. Yes, it actually was in the trailer. It was in the trailer. So Johnny is like picking him up and he's like he's like, you need to say it. He's like, I don't want to say it. He's like, say it. And he's like, I don't want to say it. He's like, say it. And he's like, it's clobbering time. And he just like drops him and he's just like ready to hit. I'm not telling you who. All I'm saying is
Yeah.
he does actually say it because there was one other scene that, and it's also in the trailer too, is like this guy randomly in the street says, hey, say that catchphrase of yours. Yeah, I don't say that, man. That's only in the TV show, And so he's trying to be like, nah, I don't. That's not me, man. That's just whatever.
All right, we should move on because there's a bunch of other people. We
Yes,
gotta
okay.
Talk about.
All right, so yes, Sue. Okay, we'll just go back real quick. So Sue, she, like we've mentioned, she is one of the most powerful. I mean, I know in the movies and really in the the comic books, yeah, she's invisible. It's kind of like if you were to take Wonder Woman, it's like invisible plane. It's like the same idea, but in this case, like she can just go anywhere she wants, and so like she just pops up out of nowhere, and you're just like, well, that's fucking weird. She could literally pop in and be like, hey, how you doing? I'm a ninja. But then again, like the biggest thing about her is, like I said, the it's like that aura blast, but in this case, like force fields, right? Being able to like she can literally touch anything, let's say a ship, right? She can cloak the ship and have her own like cloaking device on the ship, right? And so like that, but also like I said, that like aura blast, force field, whatever, it's this like power that she doesn't even realize that she has. And at some points it's like, it's crazy to see where, like what it does in action. And so like when I'm saying like certain villains, again, I'm not saying who, doesn't matter because you'll have to watch it, like, we're talking about somebody that you'd think that you would never think that this person could, basically whoop their ass in like a matter of seconds. And so it's like, nobody else on the team could do half of what she does. And so, again, she's the emotional core. She's, often the true leader of the team despite being overlooked. Yes, and I understand if we're basing it off the 60s, you're thinking, okay, Reed Richards, like he's the leader. There's a reason why that statement of there's always behind a powerful, let me phrase this. Behind a powerful man, there's always a woman by her side, or whatever that, I can't remember the exact phrase, but the point is she's a strong woman. She made him be, that strong individual for that leader for the group. But without her, like he's lost, man. Like he probably would be very much lost in that sauce. And so,
Yeah.
It's crazy though. Yeah, because I know, because now this next one, the growth, right? So like, evolved from damsel in the 60s to Marvel powerhouse in modern arcs. I mean, it's true. I mean,
Yeah, most women in the in those 60s comics were, unfortunately, they were written kind of as like damsels in distress. They were always needing help from
But even if you look at DC for a second, like when you looked at like the 70s with with like Wonder Woman, like she was like that was never portrayed as like this damsel in distress time frame, kind of a thing where
Well, no, but I mean, if you look very early on, I mean, the way that they did female superheroes, though, I mean,
oh no, I agree.
she was always like, kind of
Like,
the
oh,
eye candy, the way that they drew her
of course.
and did. I mean, obviously now I think they're a little bit more aware of, she's not just a piece of candy for men to oogle and be like,
Oh no, she's
you know,
she's a strong
but,
individual. Like she
um,
she states her mind, kind of.
yeah, but I mean, obviously the growth for her, in modern arcs, like she just became more of that powerhouse, more of that leader. And then I think probably the most popular of the team
Oh yeah,
of this group is Johnny Storm,
or the Human Torch, as like he likes to be
Human
called.
Torch. Yeah, so pyrokinesis, which is obviously fire. His catchphrase "Flame on,"
Flame
which is I'm not going to go there. I'll
on!
just
Yeah, let's not talk about the other night.
whoa, hey,
Whoa! I'm just kidding. But yes, no. I mean, he's hot headed. He's the younger brother. Matt mentioned this a little bit ago. Like, right, he's the ladies' man. He's the prankster. He likes to be the fun of the group. But there are moments of clarity, or at least moments of like wisdom that he does bring sometimes. And they're like, "Oh,
Yeah.
Johnny, thank you. I appreciate you doing that."
I mean, I think the movie did do a better job of like grounding him a little bit more
Oh yeah, versus like the 2005 with Chris
versus
Evans.
how they portrayed him in the other ones. I mean, obviously with Chris Evans, he was way
He was way
way ladies man
Oh,
and
yeah.
everything. But I mean, that one was fun at least. I mean, more of a prankster with Ben Grimm, and that was fun. But a little fun fact: he does become close friends with Spider-Man later on in the comics.
I didn't know
so-
that. Yeah, it's
so that's
interesting.
That's kind of an interesting thing. But moving on to one of the characters that I really love the Silver Surfer, to be honest with you.
Oh,
But
I do. I think he's a great character.
So Norin Rad and Shalla-Bal, they were. I mean, obviously Norin Rad is like the heart behind the Surfer. So why does this matter? Like, why do these characters matter to the Fantastic Four? Well, for first things, I mean, the Galactus trilogy, which was, issues number 48 through 50, they were in 1966.
I will say this: imagine having those comics
I
in
know.
your hands.
That's
man.
crazy, yeah.
That would be insane to read that.
So that one in those issues introduced Galactus and his herald, the Silver Surfer, which was Norin Rad. And they were arguably the most famous Fantastic Four storyline ever. And it was the first time that Marvel Comics went fully cosmic, expanding beyond Earth's heroes to more universal threats.
If you think about it, most of the movies that we've seen in the last 20 years have basically based off of this.
Right.
Because when you look at 2005 and 2007 was really when they introduced that. But like, you're looking at like this new one. Yes, this is based off of that alone, but with a minor change.
With a minor change.
So
yeah, this is so Norin Rad's transformation. So he was a young astronomer from a utopian planet named Zenla.
I did not know that, to be honest.
This is the actually same planet that's in the movie.
Was it? Oh, did they?
I don't know if they mentioned it, but it is the same planet. He was deeply in love with Shalla-Bal, who is effectively his soulmate and the ruling monarch of Zenla.
Which, yeah, and I won't go any further than that. But yeah, I mean that does make sense.
So when Galactus arrived to devour Zenla, Norin sacrificed himself. He bargained with Galactus, basically saying, spare my world, take me as your herald. And then in exchange, Galactus imbued him with the power cosmic, transforming him into the Silver Surfer. So the one thing I do want to say,
Go ahead, because I'm waiting for this.
Who was Shalla-Bal at that moment? So at that moment, Shalla-Bal remained on Zenla as both ruler and Norin's lost love. So for her role, like the symbol of everything that Norin gave up, his love, his home, his freedom, she represents the cost of his heroism, the recurring figure of longing in the Surfer story. And in early stories, including Fantastic Four, she's less developed mostly existing in motivation behind Norin's sacrifice. Later comics, they fleshed her out more of as a leader who struggles with his absence.
Okay.
And then with Norin, and his tragedy of giving, obviously being Galactus's herald, adds that emotional weight to that storyline, but it's rooted for the love of Shalla-Bal and his longing for freedom. And then later, I think a little bit later on, like she becomes an important recurring character for the Surfer solo stories, because that's really the heart of his sacrifice. And this is like where I think and I'm trying not to reveal.
I know you're
I'm
not.
really trying not to reveal anything, but the MCU switched this without even mentioning Norin.
That is true. They did do that, especially with Shalla-Bal's character. And go ahead, Matt. I'll let you talk about
Because
these.
The one thing I noticed, and I'm sorry if you can skip forward if you think like, oh, whatever. I don't care. The one thing, Norin Rad was a young astronomer from Zenla. What they did was they replaced Norin Rad and they said Shalla-Bal was a scientist. They didn't necessarily say Zenla, but you understood maybe it wasn't Earth because she was speaking another language. Nobody understood what the language was. Fantastic Four was from Earth. So obviously different planet, she wasn't from Earth. So you can say that was Zenla. She had a child, but they didn't mention Norin Rad. So you can assume somewhere there's a father.
Right. And you would think that he would be the one to father this child. But again, you're right. In the MCU, in regarding that moment, it's like they completely scratched and they're like, you know what, forget Norin Rad here. Even though Norin Rad, as we just mentioned in the comics, was a very pivotal point, especially in the whole Galactus timeline. And so now when you're saying, hey, Shalla-Bal is literally the Silver Surfer and, doing her thing and doing whatever. And this is where, yes, we're going to mention this one more time. When we talk about DEI, okay, we're talking about this particular moment because it was literally everything else besides.
This was his motivation.
No, right. And I agree with you. But now that you're just basically saying, like, okay, get rid of Norin Rad, Shalla-Bal is literally the Silver Surfer. That's it. There's no changing that piece. It's like, why did we just get rid of a very important character, or at least the timeline wise of this whole story? And so, yes, that's why I'm saying when you look at the DEI, sorry, you're looking at her and you're saying, okay, we need to have a female Silver Surfer. Okay, well, what I was going to say too is that when you look at the story, you could have had Norin Rad, and you could have also eventually brought her in, and you know what I mean. It didn't have to be right.
Well, the thing is, I would have appreciated you getting rid of the kid and replacing the kid with Norin, having them both running down the beach like they're already in love, and then her sacrificing herself for the planet,
right?
And then literally leaving Norin behind.
I will say,
then that's the motivation. But now, what is her motivation? There is none.
Well,
you see the kid, but the kid's never mentioned again.
True, but here's another important piece. You know what? And I'm going to say it too. If you want to fast forward to this part, I don't know what to tell you at this point. The fact that it's also an alternate Earth. Okay, so keep that in mind when you're watching this movie. I'm not saying what Earth. I'm just saying an alternate Earth. So sure, they could have had a different version where they could have had Norin Rad be Silver Surfer, whatever, right? So on and so forth. The point is that when you're looking at this Earth and the way it's developed, right? Because again, now kind of understanding the fact that, you got Fantastic Four being a very popular group of superheroes at this point, right? And again, we all know it's supposed to be in the 60s, and there's a reason for that. But now looking at the fact that Shalla-Bal, sorry, she's the one that, is now the Silver Surfer, right? And this is where we're getting into this piece. I just don't like I said, if that's what you want to do, fine. Now I'm hoping, right, and I'm using air quotes here. I know Matt's the only one that can see me. I'm hoping that they will eventually at least either mention or actually show Norrin Rad, because if they don't and they really don't want to
I
do
think
this,
we're beyond that point.
I'm just saying. I mean, because it would
mean,
be
it-
it would suck if you don't do that. You know what I mean?
It could. I mean, it could be a possibility. I think maybe down the road, if they, Galactus ends up going back to her planet to
Right.
kind of get revenge and
Yeah, maybe get him, and that
Yeah.
could be.
And if he is actually, more of that emperor
Right,
of,
being
of Zenla instead of her,
right.
then that could be like that emotional. Because this is like what when we're talking about this story of Shalla-Bal does become a surfer
Yes, eventually.
eventually, but it's because Norrin gives up a part of his power cosmic to save her life, and then she becomes an actual surfer herself.
Because of that sacrificial piece that he did.
But she's never a herald.
No, but it, again, has very similar powers to him, and that makes sense. And so, the only reason why we're saying that this is important is because, when you're looking at the story, I mean, this is why we said, MCU will do whatever they want because this is just how they are. It's fine. But like I said, the redeeming factor was what we just said. If they don't, and I'm going to say it, like if they don't do that piece, or if they don't bring him in, or if they don't show something or mention of him, like you just ruined the story.
Right.
I mean, we've talked about, for example, I know it's a random fact, but like, Brave New World, the fact that, adamantium was founded on Celestial Island and that was it. And then you just basically destroyed literally an X-Men character, Wolverine, on how he actually got his powers or his abilities, my bad, not powers. With the fact that the adamantium, claws coming out of him, like you ruin that piece of it, you know what I mean? But now I'm telling you, I'm like, you don't want to ruin this piece because this is a pivotal moment.
Right.
And then kind of moving forward a little bit, when you look at the surface tragedy, versus like, family drama of the Fantastic Four, right? They're both about sacrifice, but on different scales, right? So like, you're right, where, he's talking about a whole planet / giving up the fact that he's like, I'm trying to save my world. These guys, I mean, they're always on a constantly basis, like, because they're always thinking, okay, I like in a battle, like I pray to God that Sue doesn't die or Johnny or whoever, right? Like they don't want to think to themselves, okay, am I going to lose my brother? Am I going to lose this and that? But like when you're talking about the sacrifice, like they're always maintaining that stability with each other because like they know like they can do this as a team, because if they lose one person, the team's gone. Like it's just hard. And so, when you start to look back, it's just crazy to look at, how Fantastic Four and how Surfer are similar in ways that you may not think that they would be. And it's just, for me anyways, it's like Silver Surfer, I mean, yes, granted he's an alien. Well, sorry. I guess in the new version, she is an alien, but it's hard to think that, without them, they wouldn't be who they are, in some ways.
It just, I don't know. It kind of sucks when you have these two characters and you can't even get out of your way to even just mention the other one.
No,
you just
I
have
agree.
to be like, no, it's Shalla-Bal and that's all we're doing. And then you just completely change the narrative. And what you're going to try to backtrack? I mean, I'm not trying to get back into this, but like,
Yeah.
are you just going to backtrack? Like, you're going to mention them later?
Right.
What are you going to try to do? Because if you're going to try to do a same story arc where Doctor Doom is now trying to steal the Surfer's power cosmic, which is what Doom always tries to do anyways.
Well, he tries to steal anybody that is more powerful.
But this is where, I mean, I'm not revealing like the end credit scene, but like he's tried to steal Franklin Richards' power cosmic abilities. He's tried to steal the Silver Surfer's abilities. He's tried to steal even Shalla-Bal's in the comic books. Like, he's tried to steal Galactus's too. I mean,
actually, technically,
he's gone after everybody's cosmic powers.
Technically, if I'm not mistaken, he actually tries to go after the Infinity Stones at some point.
Oh, he does.
There's so many things. Again, he's trying to get power, and that's the biggest thing. But yes, I know that we won't talk about that too much. But
that's the thing. You're ruining this by not including the other one, because you're like, well, that's a man. Where we want to make sure that our DEI checkboxes are checked off, and we don't need him right now.
Now, I wanted to say, because I know Matt pointed this out when we were watching the movie. He's like, well, Pedro Pascal. And I'm like, yes, I understand if you're talking about Hispanic. Sure, I get it. But at the same time, it's like, it's not a bigger deal in this case versus like Shalla-Bal.
It's not a bigger deal unless you're going for Best Picture.
Oh, well, I guess if you want to put it like that, sure.
Yes.
But yes, I mean,
so
interesting facts, though.
We can move on, to Marvel's role in the larger universe, because believe it or not, there are some. I'm gonna go out there and say these are some minor people that the Fantastic Four has introduced, John.
Well, hold on a minute. No, not the first one. Hold on. So this is what I was like. Yeah, my ass, the first one. So what he's saying is, yes,
that was a joke and sarcasm.
Yes, it is joke and sarcasm. Yes, but Black Panther. Okay. Yes, he was introduced by the family.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So the Fantastic Four, right? They introduced him in issue number 52 back in the day. This had to be like early 60s, probably around that same time frame of this probably 61 time frame.
Yeah, believe it or not, Black Panther did not have his own comic book. Well, it was introduced in Fantastic Four.
Here's the thing, though, right? So just like Falcon and a few others that were black, comic book superheroes. At that time frame, they didn't want to do that. And so the fact that they did this in the early 60s when technically civil rights and all that shit was still going on, that's a huge move, man, especially in a comic book, because Black Panther was definitely one of those ones that, now, especially now, that's a huge move on Marvel. And so the fact that they did that and introduced him, I thought it was great. I think it's great that they did all that, and then, of course, like we've just mentioned, like Silver Surfer and Galactus. I mean, what I was gonna say, without really those two, maybe not some. I'm not saying Black Panther wasn't as important, but I'm saying for the Fantastic Four's overall history, without Silver Surfer and Galactus, Fantastic Four probably wouldn't be as popular as it was now. And so another ones, which I actually had no idea, the Inhumans. I had no idea that the Inhumans. So you're talking Black Bolt, I think Lady Medusa. Is it Lady Medusa? I think, or something. There's a few of them. I can't remember all their names, but I know Black Bolt is the leader of the Inhumans. But I didn't know that. I had no idea that that was an early on.
Yeah, and then there's a bunch. You're talking. This is Fantastic Four issue number 2.
Yeah, so we're talking
number 2.
Well, now I'm curious when that came out.
So this is it's not just one character, it's a group of characters, but the Skrulls. And they've been instrumental right now in the MCU. They've been all over the place. But the Skrulls were Fantastic Four issue number 2. I know it debuted in 61, so it had to be 61.
So issue number 2, I'm just looking at it. No, that's not right. Oh, but okay, yeah. It had to be it's 1961. So So that's still crazy to me, because the fact that the Skrulls were never mentioned until that point. But it's crazy because when you look at, especially if you're looking at MCU, right? So talking about Miss Marvel, and you're talking about, or sorry, not Miss Marvel, Captain Marvel, and or Mar-Vell, right, is the original, character, somebody like that, without even having the Skrulls and all that, you wouldn't have a lot of these people. So Adam Warlock.
Yep.
Doctor Doom, and Franklin Richards. I didn't realize the Watcher was a part of that list.
Yeah, Kang the Conqueror, that was the Roma Tut, I think version, whatever that name, the Egyptian one.
Right, but the thing is about King the Conqueror is that, yes, so when you look at the history of this, King the Conqueror is actually a descendant from Reed Richards. So that's where people need to understand that's a reason why Kang is important, especially in future timelines, because that's why I'm saying the Fantastic Four, even though they, I've mentioned this before, they're somewhat underrated. there's a lot of characters that if they were never introduced,
Right.
you wouldn't have a lot of the MCU.
Yeah. I mean, Ronan the Accuser. I mean,
Yeah.
that one right there. I mean, I think the Kree were also part of the list. I don't think I might have missed putting them in there, but Ronan the Accuser was a big part of the Guardians of the Galaxy movies.
Right.
I mean,
Well,
he
and-
was
right. But I would say even just the timeline
Yeah.
of everything. And so, and it's funny when you watch, What If, in Marvel, like the Watcher was like,
Yeah.
Technically the big character, it's like, oh, hey, what if this happened, but again, without all these characters, I mean, honestly, like I said, you wouldn't have what it is today. And so when we say follow the damn blueprint, I mean, I'm hoping, granted, no, they didn't follow Adam Warlock, King the Conqueror as much, maybe Ronan the Accuser, sure, you can add him in there. Some of them they did. Some of them, no, they definitely did not follow any damn blueprint of what we've been talking about. But so yes, we mentioned that their headquarters, the Baxter Building, right? So it became a central hub for Marvel crossovers. Was also the first team to explore multiverses and cosmic threats decades before the MCU did. Of course, it better be, because shit, you wouldn't have what we have today. I don't know what else to say about that.
Yeah.
When you look at Hank Pym and looking at what do they call it? I was about to call it the microverse, but it's not called the microverse. It's the oh, damn it, I lost my train of thought. I honestly, you know what I mean, like that the smaller universe that they're in. I know I can't remember what it's called, but like looking at it at like an anatomical level, versus like. Oh, the negative zone. No, that's what it. Right, that's what it's called, the negative zone. Right.
What?
What Hank Pym like when he goes small. Is it the negative? I'm pretty sure it's the negative zone, right?
I thought that was the quantum.
Or is it, quantum realm. Sorry,
Yeah.
Jesus, man. There's so many damn zones, realms, things of that nature. Point is like you wouldn't have a lot of that. But yes, big one. Ready? Doctor Doom.
Dr. Doom.
So
yes.
Sorry, go ahead. Just go ahead.
So, Dr. Doom, he is the monarch of Latveria, which we haven't yet seen Latveria represented. Don't.
I'm not saying.
I see you. I see your little finger.
I didn't say a word.
We're not saying
I
a
didn't
word.
say a word. No.
But he is the monarch of Latveria, which we have not seen in the MCU. Don't raise your little finger or say
stop,
a word.
Stop. I didn't say that. I said it. Now I was going to say in the like animated stuff. You do see that he is the
Animated stuff, yes.
Yes, I didn't say MCU. But you didn't let me finish.
MCU.
Yes, I know, but in animated stuff, yes, you did see him be that leader or dictator.
Yes, so he is a dictator. I think he's beloved by his people, but only because he's a dictator.
It's more like Putin. Never mind.
But he's obviously not your mustache twirling villain, like like you'd see. Like I don't know why this is.
Why did you do that? I was wondering.
Because that's what it says. I don't know. I didn't write this.
Right. Sure, you didn't write it. Anyways.
So he's like equal master of science. I think he's maybe in like an in between of Reed and Tony, probably somewhere within there.
Yeah, but he's
also sorcery too. So it's like a mixture of
like Doctor Strange mixed with like maybe Reed and
science.
Tony.
Yeah. So it's like really science and sorcery mixed together. So mystic arts. He believes he can save the world better than anyone else. So he does view himself like as a hero, but it's really kind of a twisted view.
It's kind of like he's almost Thanos in some ways, but not every way. But like he's in like that's kind of his vision. Like he almost sounds like Thanos in that the way he's thinking.
My view is still #Thanos is right, but that's just me.
No, I figured that. When you look at him though, it's like they're really not that much different in the way that they view certain things. And then that's the crazy part. You're talking about an alien from Jupiter, versus a guy who's literally just born here. And
so part of his origin is tied to saving his mother's soul from hell.
I actually didn't know that.
Which adds to kind of a Shakespearean tragedy.
Yeah, I honestly didn't know that, to be honest. I had no idea that hell had a whole lot of his motivation, speaking wise. But so why does Doom work? Why Doom works? Sorry.
Well, I think it's. Obviously, this is a lot of this comes from my research, and I do use ChatGPT a lot. But
Yes, I know.
so why Doom works? He's one for one. I mean, he's obsessed with Reed Richards. They have a pretty strong rivalry in the comics.
Well,
And the rivalry is not just like personal; it's also intellectual. So his intellect really blends like that Tony Stark brilliance. If you look at Magneto and the way he carries himself, it has that kind of like he has that same kind of strength.
yeah, and I was gonna say this. I mean,
And when you said Doctor Strange, I mean it's that same, magical kind of mysticism.
yeah, I was gonna say this, right? So I almost feel like, depending on if you're looking at the movie or the comics, I really don't know about the comics necessarily, but I know at least the movie, like, yes, I know when you look at 2005 version of Doctor Doom, like, yeah, he goes and he joins them in space, and then he, kind of gets this ability of like electro, wouldn't say magnetism per se, but like it's like his body is like metal in a sense, and so like he just like electricity kind of comes to him and does certain things. Um, but it's like, his, like, I really don't know exactly how in the comics per se, like how he got his powers. You know what I mean, or how he got the way he was. Like that's the piece I can't remember off the top of my head. I mean, if it is similar to that, then that's fine. But like, depending on certain things, right? Like that changes the dynamic of the story, or at least his origin regarding that piece. Let me guess. You
So
already
yeah,
looked
no,
it
it
up?
says that he was initially trained by Tibetan monks.
Oh, okay,
Doom's
so
magical powers are later enhanced by his lover Morgan Le Fay.
Wait, really? Morgan Le Fay?
That's what it says.
So we're talking King Arthur in that general realm, right?
Supervillain published by Marvel Comics.
Because
Morgan Le Fay of Arthurian legend.
so it's funny how, hold on, I want to say this. DC and now Marvel has done a version of King Arthur in a sense, because I didn't know that. I know DC definitely did, with Jason Blood and all that stuff.
So yeah, it says that she belongs to a species of humanoid magical beings called fairies.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So then, okay, that's
So
interesting how that comes in.
she's been an opponent of the Avengers in the 70s. She appeared in the original Spider-Woman.
Really?
Ancient foe, like a reincarnation of her ancient foe Magnus, former lover of Doctor Doom.
Yeah.
She was a member of the Dark Holders for a time.
Yeah. I didn't know that, man. Honestly, that's
Yeah.
new. I had no idea that would have been in the case. But
So the magical spells Doom cast grant him additional powers abilities, including energy absorption, projection, technopathy, dimensional travel, and healing. He's able to summon hordes of demonic creatures.
Jesus.
Doom placed second in a magic tournament held by the ancient sorcerer, the aged Genghis.
Oh, I had no idea.
And after Doctor Strange relinquished the title of Sorcerer Supreme, he acknowledged Doom's potential to assume that role.
Interesting. I love how a supervillain became the Lord, the magical one. Oh, geez.
But one of the biggest thing, he used, he was a pretty genius inventor, which one of the biggest things I think he invented were his Doom bots.
Yes, and that is actually a big like proponent of him, because like, especially like, I know when he's the ruler of Latveria, like he uses them as his own will, and so like he does
Right, because
whatever the hell he
and they
wants.
look just like him, so that was kind of like the way that he used them, because he used kind of like a life model decoy, so they were programmed to believe themselves as him.
Right.
So when he sent them out, they were like without hoods, so people would confuse them as him
Right, every single time.
every single time.
Now, but it's weird though, because when you look at him, like, I mean, I was going to say there's certain details, of course, that you could tell besides like if it's the real Doom versus not. But the fact that most people were getting so confused by if it was really him or not, I mean, that says a lot about his genius level when it comes to robotics in that sense, because
Yeah.
that's crazy that you'd be able to do all that, and he has his own personal army that he can just keep creating every time and not have to worry about it. So it's like and in some ways, because he's the ruler of Latveria, like that's how he generates his wealth. Like, that's how he basically does whatever he does. But the biggest thing about him though is there's a certain comic or a certain really like storyline that is and of course in MCU they're going to use is Secret Wars. And so like
Right.
he's a very big individual in this storyline, and so like if you didn't have this storyline, especially in his character, like especially the fact that MCU's like, hey, we're going to use this. I mean, if they didn't bring in Doom,
I
they
don't
would
know
have
how
screwed up the entire
I
story.
don't know how they get this done in one movie, to be honest.
I don't
mean,
either, and I have no idea how this is going to play out.
Secret Wars should be more than just one movie, but I mean, Doom basically becomes a god.
Well,
I mean, quite literally becomes a god in this book.
Well, the biggest thing too is that when you look at the movie, like when you look at Doomsday, like hopefully in the Doomsday Avengers or whatever, like hopefully that kind of transpires, of course, into the Secret Wars. But the biggest one too, besides just Secret Wars, they also could have done is Civil War. That could have been a hell of a lot longer than what it was. But
Right.
I'm hoping that at least in their case of this, that it should be.
I'm honestly hoping that once, the Doctor Doom one comes out and Secret Wars comes out, that Marvel does like a hard reset after
absolutely
after
Absolutely.
Secret Wars, and maybe like after Secret Wars, a lot of these stupid ass characters like Ironheart, if she's in it, like all these stupid characters that they've created,
Right.
are dead.
Wow.
And
that's getting real technical now, but yeah.
And they can move on from and be like, okay, now that Secret Wars is done and we've killed off all of the characters that have not been making money or people like literally just don't know or hate, now we can move on to like X-Men.
Yes.
And we can move on to other things that
Make more sense.
can make more sense.
And maybe, right, you can still keep the Fantastic Four and maybe just make it better in the sense of
Maybe they should just do one movie and one show a year
as they should have
You know what I
done in
mean?
the beginning.
instead of
Absolutely.
like trying to do 2 movies and 3 shows. Just maybe even just drop the whole phase thing that you're doing. I don't know, but we're gonna do a whole episode
Oh,
next
yes, we
week
will.
that will be, is superhero fatigue real?
Yes, it is.
Oh yes, it is.
But yes, no. So kind of moving a little bit forward though.
Yeah, we're
Um,
not going to talk about Julian McMahon again. We've talked a lot about him.
Sorry. I guess whatever. Fine. And then,
We can touch on the movies. I did say skip, but
well, thanks, bud. I saw that just now. But yes, no. Looking back at the 2005, 2007 film, so 2005 being more focused on Doom, and then 2007 being like the Silver Surfer Galactus thing. Yeah, I mean, these movies were definitely lighter tone, aimed at families. Chris Evans, like Human Torch, was the highlight. Pre Captain America days, of course, because it's weird to look at him from that till now because he
Yeah.
was much more serious.
and then obviously Jessica Alba, she was cast because she was Jessica Alba. I think that not really cast because they were like, oh, you're going to be perfect for Sue. No, you look kind of hot, so everybody wants to see you. You know what I mean? Like,
I know.
like, come on, blonde hair, blue contacts.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, come on,
Like,
come
come
on. I mean, you have a blonde haired, blue contact
woman.
and
It's just
you
it's
have
sad.
you have and I'm just gonna say it. You have an ugly Mr. Fantastic, and then
I love
you-
how you talked about that.
you have Jessica Alba, and then her brother, who's playing Human Torch, is Chris Evans on the other side.
Right.
You know
No,
what I mean? So
I know
like,
what you mean.
and
yeah.
and then you have the Thing.
Mike Chiklis, yes. Who he does a good job, I think. I think he does.
But I mean, it's not like you see him. You just see him in the Thing suit. You know what I mean? Like,
I know, but it's all. I mean, you could tell it's rubbery and latex. It just the material didn't look like he's an actual rock. It looks like he just like puts on a suit and that's it. And then
I mean, it was still, I think when you're comparing these movies to the 2015, I mean,
those films were definitely a little bit better for sure.
yeah, they were definitely a little bit better. Like,
But I mean, the sad part about even the 2005, 2007 is like that 2007 where you're seeing.
it was
we mentioned this
very
Galact-
Hollywood.
right? And I was gonna say you're looking at Galactus as this giant cloud, and that's why I was saying in the beginning, like it's sad because you're not even seeing what Galactus should be. And
Right.
that's why I'm saying it's so disappointing, especially with fans who are watching this, because
Well, that's a Fox thing. You know what I mean? That's like when you're taking. I mean, we say this all the time, like follow the damn blueprint. That's why we have the shirt.
we literally
But, like,
made it for this reason.
But like they've done the same thing with video games. They've done the same thing with comic books. They've done the same thing with fill in the blank. You have the material, and then you go, wow, we can really make this our own. Instead of making like we really don't have a solution for what a 500-foot Galactus to walk around, Manhattan or whatever, like New York.
Yeah.
Let's just make him a cloud.
Yeah, that's what I mean. And it's just, it looks weird because you don't even know it's Galactus. You think it's a black hole or something.
So let's just make him a cloud. Then we don't have to do like somebody in a weird suit, and we'll just make him a cloud, and it'll just make sense. Everybody will love it.
And you're like, what the fuck is this shit? Like,
But then 2015 comes around, and they go, "Hey, how do we redesign Doctor Doom so he doesn't look like Let's make him a garbage bag with powers." Because that's exactly kind of what he looked like. He looked like a damn garbage bag.
So I'm not gonna lie to you. I actually didn't even see that movie because I even just looked at the trailers. I remember like watching like clips of it, and I honestly was like, "This is trash. This is like garbage supreme." Because this one doesn't make any sense, and there's a reason why it never made more than one movie. Because I think most people realize that it wasn't even close. It wasn't even the same dynamic as what we've seen in the past. I mean, this one was probably just as bad as even the '90s, like TV show. Like it just didn't make a whole lot of sense. I mean, you have a dark, gritty reboot, veered to the into body horror territory. Production plagued by reshoots, studio interference, and a director meltdown. And then, like you just said, I mean, the garbage bag with powers, and the fact that audiences are just saying, "Hey, it's a bunch of confusion, frustration, lacked humor, heart, and family dynamic." I mean, the fact that you're just basically making a pile of shit and saying, "Here you go," and this.
Yeah,
is
I
the
mean,
movie?
if you gave if you gave somebody like a metal face, and then it looks almost like I'm gonna. It's a crappy picture.
Well, yeah, that doesn't even look.
It's like you took somebody from like a Ren fair, right? Like
yeah, like a cosplay.
I'm saying a Ren fair. A cosplayer or like a LARPer
Yeah, that's what I was
from a
thinking.
Ren fair, and they're like, "Well, I didn't really have like a cape with a hood, so I just took a garbage bag, and made it into a cape and a hood, and this is like a plastic metal chest,
Yeah,
and my boots are plastic, and my gloves are plastic. That's what it looks like to me.
And it sounds like you just call him Plastic Man and just call it and say, "Hey, what's up, DC?"
And the CGI just looks. I mean, I'm looking at these pictures. I'm like, the CGI just looks awful. It's just the whole thing is just. I don't know. But you do these like dark, gritty reboots, and you're like, oh, this is gonna be so great. Like, but again, with the old movies to 2005, 2007, and 2015, they do the same thing. They treat them as a team or a group. They don't treat them as a family.
Right.
But the 2015 was dark. I mean, they made them dark. They're like, hey, this was way lighthearted, very corporate, very Hollywood. We're just gonna we're gonna pull a card right out of DC's playbook, and we're just gonna go dark.
We're gonna go fucked up and dark. But again, I'm just gonna mention this. Like I said, we both watched the new one. I can tell you, this one has definitely brought it to another level. I know there's some slight differences, whatever, but this is honestly one of the first times I've at least seen with these characters that has made it literally about the family, and they've done that with this movie. I mean, yes, at first I was a little skeptical about the whole thing because of it being in the 60s and doing all that.
The thing is?
The thing is, yes,
Yeah.
the thing is, yeah. No, like, I mean, I'm looking at the cup. Like, we both decided to buy like a little merch, and so like there was a thing like cup that I have here, and it's actually pretty cool. What I'll do, Matt, is I'll probably take a couple photos of these and this like cool popcorn box thing that they had. I was like, I'm gonna get one. I figured, why not? and it has this like little version of Johnny Storm here, the Human Torch, and
It looks like he's flipping you
it
off.
looks like it really is. It really does look like. he's
Or
flipping
like I
off.
said before, the spicy meatball.
Yeah, hey, a spicy meatball.
I mean, he is on fire, but
Yeah, that's true.
so I didn't bring it with me because I forgot it because I have a lot of pack with me, but
Yeah, that's true.
I do have the Johnny Human Torch cup that's like on fire. It looks like it's on fire and it lights up.
Which that was kind of cool. I'm not
Yeah.
gonna lie, but like the merch wise, I mean, even for this, I mean, it was cool. It's different, and it shows that the family, at least the dynamic, like it shows that it's really how I will admit, like I told Matt this, like I haven't really been to a whole lot of movies in theaters, but like this is the first time where I was kind of like, it. I was genuinely surprised. Like
Yeah,
I'm
and
glad
it's-
that MCU did that.
Yeah, and there's, I mean, like I said, we're not trying to reveal too much, but I think the certain scenes that they had done with them,
No, they did
Like,
fantastic.
they portrayed them in other ways, and it showed them, in more casual manners
Yeah.
than it was just them like constantly just fighting or going on missions or
I mean,
I mean, yeah, you had your main story arcs, but there were other times where you were like, hey, that's kind of cool that they're just doing this, and it made it allude to like there were certain things that they did all the time.
yeah. So, like for example, like they're sitting at the dinner table, and Johnny's just sitting there with a bag of cereal, and Grimm's like, "Why do you have cereal at the dinner table? You're gonna spoil your appetite." And he's like, "Because I'm hungry." The stupid little comments between the both of them because they both like to be hot-headed. But it's like you see that dynamic of like even having family dinner time.
Right.
Like, that was a unique.
And they're like, well,
experience.
and then they were talking about Reed and Sue being late for Sunday dinner, and they're like,
Yeah.
they're never usually late for Sunday. So it made it sound like they always have like a Sunday meal
right together.
together, which was really cool. And like you don't see that with like Avengers, or you don't see that with
I mean-
other things. So that was kind of like the family tension and the family dynamics that were going on within the within Fantastic Four. But it was also that like with Reed and with even with Johnny, that scientific curiosity and figuring out like what's going on with Johnny and the certain things with the surfer. I won't reveal, but
Yeah.
the certain things of like trying to figure out what was going on, like that was Fantastic Four, like trying to save the world, trying to figure out this like scientific stuff, like going to the chalkboards and writing out like equations, and even though like I think some of the things that he was writing weren't real, but
No, they're probably a bunch of bullshit on a chalkboard. But
it was just that sense of their like relationship and that sense of wonder. Obviously the movie had a lot of humor. It had a lot of optimism. Like for the 60s, you saw like I don't even know how many vehicles I saw that they were driving.
oh yeah.
There were a shit ton.
No, and the one thing I was gonna just mention real quick, it's not really spoiling anything, but like, when they were all sitting down for a second, I think he knows what I'm talking about. They're all sitting down and they're like, okay, what's the game plan? And then literally Reed goes, I don't know. Like he legit says, I don't know. And it's the only reason why I say this is a very unique and interesting topic is because what we talked about earlier about Reed is like he always has a plan. He always has things in mind. He's always trying to prevent things and do whatever. But this is the first time I've actually seen him like say, I don't know. I really don't know what to do. And it shows you that he is human, that he doesn't know
Right.
these things. And so like he doesn't, like he even said like in the movie a little bit, like there's things that we just don't understand. Like we're predating, past, our Earth existence. So like him acknowledging that and understanding like, hey, I don't know everything, like that right there shows like, when you have a mind like that, especially when you start to look at the Avengers a little bit, like in Tony, like he didn't know anything about that either. But then he was like, I really don't know what to do. And then they fail as a team. But like, I mean, I can't again say too much here, but like they, as a family, it's like you see the family dynamics, you see how they work things together. And that's the piece where, especially in this movie, I think they did a really, really good job of showing that. And that's
Yeah.
why I'm saying this movie, I would advise you guys, anyone who likes the comics and all this, to really see this movie. Cause I know both Matt and I were skeptical and we were like, is this really worth our time? Again, there are differences, there are certain things, but I think as a overall view, I think they did a really good job of really showing what the Fantastic Four would be like, and especially
Yeah,
in
I mean,
the more modern day.
I do think the movie was for what Marvel has been putting out lately. I do think that this movie is a breath of fresh air for what Marvel has been doing.
Yes.
I do think there's a lot of good things that this movie did. Um, I do question Silver Surfer a
Yes.
lot, but
Yeah, I
but
do
that's
agree.
that's really like a 10%, maybe less of a that's really kind of like
The really,
a
yeah.
small problem, not like a huge like
No. I mean, even
the,
showing
the thing with Ironheart, like that's like a 98% problem. Like I have a 98% problem with that show, like altogether. The 2% is Mephisto. Like I don't have a problem with Mephisto.
No, well, again, I gotta
But
watch that too. But yes, but I mean, even showing like the Baxter Building, showing all the different vehicles that they have, and like showing.
But that's the thing, like
all that, like that's cool to
embracing
me.
embracing that like that pulp sci-fi vibe. I mean, it almost had that like that Star Trek
Yeah.
feel, and that's
Yeah.
what you need with Fantastic Four. That is what makes them who they are, But I think in the future, like they need to embrace that like that pulp sci-fi vibe, and especially them investigating like the negative zone and more of that time travel, or not really time travel, but multiversal travel.
Right.
Showing those family moments like dinners and the arguments and the personal sacrifices. And then the last thing that's in the notes right here is Dr. Doom, and I'll say this because it's RDJ, we know this already. Dr. Doom should not just be an evil Iron Man, right?
True.
And I'm hoping that that's not just how they portray him in these movies in the future. Like that he's not just like
Right. the
some
evil Iron,
weird
yeah.
like they're like he has the stupid thing on his chest, and his mask looks like Iron Man, and we're just like, so you just made him Dr. Doom, but he looks like Iron Man? Like that's stupid. Like you should have just made him Iron Man, just green. You know what I mean? Like you should have just made him like an alternate Tony Stark that was evil.
Right. And well, especially like when we've mentioned in the past, like the the alternate like comic book where where
The what if?
the what if.
Yeah.
Well, was it what if, or was it? I know it was also a comic that they show that Tony was, technically Victor. And it's because they switched minds and they do.
Yeah, that was one of the what ifs where Tony and Reed had it was Reed's experiment.
Okay, and
But,
they switched with Victor.
But Victor was I believe in that comic, Victor was sent back to Latveria, but before he was sent back,
It was Tony's mind.
they had switched. So Tony's mind was in Reed's body, and
Was it Reed? I thought it was. I thought Tony was in Victor's, and then Victor was in Tony's.
yes.
Okay, there we go.
So yeah, Victor was in Reed's mind, and Reed's mind was in Tony's. I said that right? Reed and Tony's and Reed's.
I thought it was Victor though. I thought Victor had
Victor,
a part.
yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Okay, because you kept saying Reed, so I was just like,
yes. So yes, Victor was
There you
in
go.
Tony,
there you go.
and then
Tony
Tony
was in
was in Victor,
There you go.
and then Victor was sent back to Latveria,
Yes, correct.
and then Victor stayed in school
Yes,
and ultimately became a green version of Iron Man.
right. And then basically Tony became
And basically that version of it was kind of like they
was
became the
weird.
opposite of what they were, because that version of Victor, which was actually Tony, became the actual doctor,
right.
like actually finished school, where that one was the evil one, but the one that Victor, who was actually in Tony's body,
Right.
that stayed in school, was becoming the evil one.
right. That's what I mean. Right.
So it was like completely the opposite story,
but
where he was more of a green Iron Man, but he was doing evil things,
right versus
Dr. Doom
who was this good guy.
was a good guy, and his suit looked more like Iron Man, and Tony, aka Victor, looked more like Dr. Doom.
Right.
Yeah, so it was like complete opposite, and then obviously they fought, and
Yeah, they did all that fun stuff. But I mean, I think really getting into just kind of the last piece here, like, why do they keep getting things wrong? Right. So again, biggest one is misunderstanding the source. And we've both talked about following the damn blueprint, right? We've talked about this in the past. So when you look at Fantastic Four, they are explorers first. They want to see, that's why in the new movie, that's why I'm not saying a lot, Reed is actually saying we're going to collect samples. We're going to do all these things. We're going to understand what is going on first, because that's what he was doing. Because they are like, he's a scientist. He wants to know what is going on. So in that sense, right, they're not that Avengers style superheroes. I mean, yes, they do. Again, they do have cosmic power. Well, some of them do, and some of them don't. Right, and they have basically powers in general. But the point is that they are scientists first and explorers before they're the superheroes, because they need to understand what it is that they're fighting to be in order to then work as a team.
Right.
And so that's the piece where, yes, this movie does also very much portray that piece of it. And so like that is what I'm saying, is that's a good thing about this. But also, again, their conflicts often come from family tension and scientific curiosity gone wrong, not save the world plots. And it's true even in this movie too, because those things are definitely in there, and you see that dynamic and certain things that come out of it. And then, this is where I also will say, and I know it's written here too, but like, yeah, studios, they focus on powers instead of their relationships and sense of wonder. So yes, I mean, when you look at most Hollywood studios, or really, I would say like any of the big corporations of movies and stuff that they do, yeah, they do. They're like, oh yeah, we want to hype up this team. We want to hype up the powers of these people. But you also need to have that human interactions and like the hardships and the sacrifice and all this other stuff that comes into it. Because if they don't, and they're only worried about, okay, flame on, baby, like who cares? Like, that's just one aspect of it.
I mean, I'm not saying that they should focus on powers, but I mean, I do want to see powers.
Well, of course you
know what I
would,
mean?
'cause
Like,
that's a superhero movie.
when you have somebody like Mr. Fantastic that's stretchy, like
You want to see that.
I want to see that. Like
And
I want to see him be stretched to the max.
you definitely do. That's all I will say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, most of this, like we've kind of already said or read through.
No, I mean,
But I mean, yeah.
I guess like the biggest thing also, like just tone. Setting the tone of a movie. The past movies didn't really do
Yeah, I mean,
a lot of it justice.
You're either going way too campy or you're going too dark. Nothing was like middle ground.
This,
You're looking at an animated movie like The Incredibles, and
Yeah.
they actually nailed the tone of a family dynamic better than any of the movies actually did.
No, you're right, and especially during that time frame, like at Disney, showing The Incredibles, and then you're looking at Fantastic Four, maybe around that time frame. Incredibles was great because they did that and they
Right.
showed that dynamic. And so with this movie, they showed the tone and they showed all that, and they made sure to make sure you understand, where they're at, and it mostly in every moment, because you, for example, I'm just going to say, the thing is, no, he's like, all right, stop with that shit. You see Ben, you see his pain, like you do see certain things in the movie, and that's part of it, and that's a good thing to see, because if you didn't, I mean, you'd just be walking around like, okay, whatever, I'm just gonna go clobber some shit, and that's it. Like you're not seeing the behind the scenes of these characters, or if you didn't see that, you wouldn't feel that emotion behind that, so you wouldn't be excited about it. And then, like I said, we've already talked about what would work. I mean, honestly, like I said, a lot of these things they show, and some of them, it's just, hopefully they get better at it, because especially moving forward, with these newer movies coming out, I'm hoping that if they see what they did with this movie, that Secret Wars and Doomsday will be as good as it should be. But especially, how many characters, Matt, did you say in Secret Wars there were supposed to be?
It's supposed to be like 80 plus.
Okay, which is even bigger than the Avengers, or Endgame.
Yeah.
Endgame only had like, I think it was like what, 20, 30 ish.
Maybe 40 at best. But
Yeah, maybe, right. But then of course you see that big battle scene and you see everybody. I mean, that was still a lot of people, but like 80 plus in a movie like that, and especially where Endgame was that pivotal point, you better make that justice, because if we say, if Endgame did better than this movie,
I mean, I do have faith that the Russo brothers are doing these two. you know, they're doing Doomsday and they're doing Secret Wars, so I do have some faith there.
Right, some.
But
I'm just hoping that it's enough to get to where they need to be. And like you said, maybe there will be a hard reset. Maybe there will be things that we see that hopefully will make it better than what it should have been. Right. I mean, but for now, you know, we've talked a lot about Fantastic Four. We've talked a lot about that. But honestly, you know, yes, it just came out this past Friday. I'm telling you, it's worth the watch. I think it's well worth your time. Literally check it out, you know, do that. And then, you know, eventually, we're not going to go too much into this, but let's just say Matt and I have also decided, since, you know, in the past, we've also talked a lot about DC and Marvel. Who knows? Maybe we'll do a little showdown between some current stuff versus, you know, actually mostly current stuff. I would say mostly current things of Marvel and DC, and compare the two, because again, you know, right now, no one's really the real winner or the king of, you know, superhero movies right now. It's just kind of like bleh, you know. But again, we're going to be talking about that down the road. I'll say that's just a little further down, but just keep in mind of that, because, you know, we're talking about next week the superhero fatigue stuff. But again, you know, you got to know who's the real winner of, you know, who makes these movies, right? Because
yeah, I don't know if there's a real winner, to be honest with you.
yeah, you're probably right. I mean, who knows? We're just two geeks on two different mics that we always talk about stupid shit. And you know what? Like we said, we talk about comic books. But guess what? Here we are. We're just doing our thing. Just let us know how we're doing. But anyways, until next time, boys and girls.